to other marketers out there. I wasn't a social media expert per se, but I had the skill set and the framework that I've learned from previous jobs and previous roles. And to date, I think one of my biggest achievements that I'm still very proud of is that we grew our social channels by 200% organically. What that tells you in a marketing peripheral, and grand scheme of things is that customers were engaging with us and we found a winning formula to talk to our customers.
Welcome to Winning with Data-Driven Marketing Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Vase.ai Market Research. I'm Julie, your host in this podcast, and in every single episode, we talk to industry leaders, marketers, and growth experts in Asia about how they use data to enhance the ROI in their marketing activities. We bring you real case studies while giving you background on how these leaders build their career to where they are today.
Today, joining me is Jia Nina, Country Marketing Head of BigPay. Nina has extensive experience in digital marketing, customer acquisition, and retention. At BigPay, she has led high-impact projects that include working with the Malaysia government to increase financial inclusion for low-income groups. She has also built strategic partnership with mega brands such as AirAsia, Shopee, Zalora. She's very passionate about creating marketing strategies that drive growth and increase customer engagement. Thank you for joining us today. Welcome, Nina.
Hi, Julie. First of all, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here, to be having this conversation today. I'm very excited.
Me too. Nina, when I look at your LinkedIn, right, one thing definitely stood out to me. You graduated with a legal degree. But in all your career choices, you seem to know marketing is the exact place you want to be. Now, it's not frequent to see a switch, but such a consistent switch. So I would love that if you can tell us, take us back to your career starting point and share with us, how do you get to where you are today?
I knew this question was going to come up because this is something that I get asked very frequently in person, at events and whatnot. But I think honestly, I always knew I was going to be a lawyer. I never knew I was going to be a marketer. And that's my most honest answer that I'll give you. When you were a kid, everyone has to fill in your report cards, and there's this three options of your
Yes.
career, what you wanted to do, and lawyer was always in the mix, right? Growing up in an Asian household, it meant lawyer, engineer, doctor. That was not imposed on me. Just to clarify, it was something that I knew I wanted to, and I had just had this really deep, strong conviction and leaning in towards a career in legal. And it was because I couldn't stop talking as a kid. I was very talkative as well. My parents were always like, you probably should be the next Ally McBeal or, consider a career in, Boston Public or whatnot. And, I think for me, it was just it's also quite bizarre because I never saw myself in a marketing career, to be honest. And so what had actually sparked that or kind of propel me into that trajectory essentially is, I think, curiosity. I have always been a curious child to begin with. I always want to know what's on the other side of the coin. I always challenge precepts and concepts, right? And I think for me is also being at the forefront, liking to experiment a lot. And I think those are naturally, essentially DNA of marketers, right? Experimenting, curiosity, having the room to sort of play around a little bit more. And I think my interest in tech-based companies in this kind of industries where it changes a lot, I think the interest was always there. And as I grew up and grew into my own element, I had opportunities that propelled me and which eventually landed me there. So it was taking a risk, essentially, having a strong conviction and knowing your personality type. You can take multiple personality tests, by the way, to kind of figure these things out. And having that unique experiences to experiment, to test, and to be in the front line of game-changing industries, that all spelled marketing for me. And so when I went into the field, I fell in love with the process, and I stayed there.
Nice. Awesome. I definitely see that in order to be a successful marketer, the willingness to experiment and the long-lasting curiosity is so important because it keeps changing.
It does. It really does. And I think just to elaborate a little bit more, right? Maybe just to give you a vantage point in terms of how I started exactly from legal and then pivoted into marketing per se. I started out in legal, and legal is a very, very niche, a very specific skill set. And 90% of my batchmates actually have left the industry. There are about 10% of them actually practicing. And when we have these little reunions, I think the common connotation that I hear from my ex classmates are that, you're one of the lucky ones that had such a strong conviction and knew that you were going to pivot. And the fact that we're outsider standpoint looking at you and your trajectory is that it seems like you make a decision that paid off. How did you know you wanted to venture out? And legal into marketing is a huge switch. And I had no theoretical education in marketing and whatnot. It was a learn on the job kind of situation, and it was a paid education, I would call it. So I think for me, how it started is literally someone took a chance on me, and gave me an opportunity in a corporate communications role first. And I said yes without hesitating, because to me was what was the worst that could happen, right? If this didn't pan out in 1 to 2 years, I could always go back to legal, right? I could just pay the nominal fee and still be a barrister and go back to practice. And yeah, there's always going to be it. But the opportunity to venture out and somebody seeing the potential, or even prompting and nudging me in that direction, was very rare, and was a very good opportunity, which I'm glad I said yes to. And that opened the doors from experimenting, learning everything in marketing, PR, crisis communications, ATL, BTL efforts, digital marketing, social media, everything under your marketing umbrella. I've learned it, I've done it. Um, and I think that was sort of the best decision and learnings that came with. And so that gave me an opportunity to sort of, propel into tech companies. So when I learned all these skills in my first role in corporate communications, that was a publication arm. That then propelled me into tech companies like video games, and then eventually now in fintechs. So in video games, right? I think the core of being a marketer and in startup environments is you're always put in a situation of David and Goliath. And for the
Mm.
benefit of people who don't know this story, David is the smaller player. He doesn't have much, he doesn't have an armor. He can't even wear it. It's heavy. And Goliath is like this giant that comes in, with strength and armor, and he's equipped, and he looks like he's going to win it in 2 seconds. And so when you as a marketer go into industries that are in the front line of changing, and you're competing for attention, you're competing for skin in the game, your brand share, and how do you tell a business storytelling and get so much skin in the market and so much brand share value and whatnot. You have to be like David. And so that allowed me the David skill sets of being agile, speed to market, and being very strategic in shots. And that is essentially the core and essence of being a marketeer. And those are things that I learned, being in a fintech company, being in a games company. And essentially it grew, and exponentially, it's all the learning curve that has come to this date. And then I landed a role in BigPay. So with BigPay, it didn't look one to one, by the way. When I didn't like go in there and get my ideal dream job, I got everything. Sometimes opportunity comes to you in disguise, and they are not one to one 100%, but you've
Mm.
got to say yes and take that leap of faith and go ride it out, right? So I started as a social media campaigns manager. So I did all of the things and a relearning, like crisis communication. How do we put a product announcement out? How do we build a go-to marketing plan in fintech, especially when there's regulation by Bank Negara, central bank? So it's some of the parameters and protocol. And for me, I think to other marketers out there, I wasn't a social media expert per se, but I had the skill set and the framework that I've learned from previous jobs and previous roles. And to date, I think one of my biggest achievements that I'm still very proud of is that we grew our social channels by 200% organically. What that tells you in a marketing peripheral, and grand scheme of things, is that customers were engaging with us, and we found a winning formula to talk to our customers, right? And for me, from that role, I then identified other opportunities, whether it was in partnerships, and I propelled myself and put myself to do the things that was unglamorous and nobody wanted to do. And I built a lot of things from scratch. And so when you pair up all of these experiences from social media and campaigns from a partnership standpoint, You learn the art of managing internal, external. So internal would be your cross pollination, whether it's working with your risk team, your compliance team, your operations and product, you know. And externally, it's managing your vendors, your partners, your stakeholders, and you bring it all together. That's landed me in the exact role that I sit today, because I literally have a bird's eye view and so much experience, together. And you sort of like, you look at the business and you're like, okay, so now here's where I sit. This is where the business is going to, and this is what the business needs, and this is how I make a decision, and this is how we propel and we continue to grow in the market.
This is definitely inspiring, especially for marketers who actually sometimes starts like at the place that where they don't know how to do. But it also shows that when you're willing to learn and really put in all the effort, you will actually grow to a place that they want to be. And talking about PicPay, I actually wanted to focus on your role there. So you touch on so many different marketing stuff just now. And I think in BigPay alone, you actually touch on a lot of different elements. So, what are some of the most effective marketing strategies that you have used?
So, marketing strategies in relation to growth, or campaigns, or
Let's start with growth.
okay. So I think, marketing strategies, it really, really looks at what your objective is, right? So if this is, for example, a mission, for more awareness campaign, right? You're looking at an acquisition play, brand awareness and acquisition. You would be looking at an ATL kind of effort. And ATL efforts obviously would look at your business metrics, your goals, and you look at your campaigns and your strategies at hand. And then obviously you also look at research and data, and then you build something. You build a go-to-market plan. And it's also very important because for ATL kinds of strategies, they are generally a broader, a larger net, right? You're casting a wider net. You're not doing very, very niche targeted conversions. You're doing much more of like, hey, look at me, or look at us. We are here in the market and we've got a great product that we think could be good and of added value to you, or who could benefit you, right? So these are USPs, and these are stuff. And I think the most important part is to not do it like a salesman, but it's to do it with a very, very tinge of, I think, the added touch, magic touch of storytelling. Because as a marketer, essentially your the key secret sauce is to be able to tell stories and relate to your customers in a very emotional sense. Because believe it or not, especially for us, as a fintech player, people say that money is a very logical thing.
Mm.
Personally, I disagree. I think it's actually very, very emotional. So knowing how to relate, tell a story that makes your audience go, oh yeah, shit. Like, that's something that I really relate to, and that really hit the spot, right? Because that's literally what I'm going through, or that's a product that I feel like could actually help solve. And so when you marry all of this together, knowing a very clear objective, having your data sets in point, building the right strategies, and knowing what you want to hit the nail, and having a very clear defined outcome is what I would say is a strategic success to marketing campaigns and efforts.
You mentioned storytelling as a very important tool.
Yeah.
Uh, Ultimately, everything, we buy things through emotional context, but we rationalize it with our brain.
Yeah.
But how do you, so there's obviously different people in the room, making decisions about what storytelling is good, what resonates with people. So is there like a framework you have or some gut feeling or heuristic that you use to kind of decide, okay, this storytelling angle is good?
So number one, I think sharing the metrics across, sharing your vision, and doing the lobbying, the buy-in process is very, very important. And as a marketer, it means you need to have relationships across various departments. It does not mean you only market certain things to your audience, or you only have relationships within your own division, right? So it means you need to have an understanding, in terms of the vision that you're going to drive, the campaign you're going to drive. Okay, we're going to tell this story and we're going to go with this positioning. You're going to have to justify and get the buy-ins from various product owners, or tech, or tech, or developers, and say like, we feel that this is the right product mission, right? This is the right product fit to go to the market, and this is the mission that we're going to drive. Therefore, we're going to say we're going to empower users with financial access and financial literacy, for example. And these guys are going to go, yeah, okay, but can you elaborate why are you saying that? And yeah, great, we've got a couple of suite of products that we think that are good for this cohort. Can you justify why you think that this is what we need to focus on? Then comes in data earlier that I mentioned, right? And you tell them like, hey, we're looking at just the last quarter, there's just been an influx of a lot of people in gig economy that needs financial access, and right, and we think that this product can really really elevate how they receive salaries or how they receive payments, and just the ease of access as they move around.
Got it. Thank you for sharing. Is there like a case study that you can also share with us, either in growth, either in campaign, that can also describe some of the effective marketing strategy that we have used before?
Okay, this is a very, very interesting question. So, I definitely have one top of mind that I know I'm very excited to walk you through, and I think this was the project with the Ministry of Finance Malaysia, right? So this was a project that was called ePemula, and knowing very clearly what we wanted to do to win in the market, right? So you had to be selected as a player as an e-wallet by the Ministry of Finance Malaysia
Mm-hmm.
to distribute to up cash distribution to up to 2 million youths, which is the Gen Z market. And in the height of it, we were in an endemic state, so we were still driving the digital payments and the cashless payments narrative. With this, was a very tall order because you're looking at a sizable base of 2 million youths, right? And how are you going to talk to all 2 million youths, and how are you going to convince 2 million youths that you are the choice, the top of mind choice? And so when we got this, it was a very tall order, but I think the team just really got down to work very quickly. I think we were all wearing our David hats, and we were like, okay, Goliath's coming. And we were ready. We were ready to take it on. And I think that's what I love most about this experience. So we immediately knew the identifying the market. First, we identified the market, and we were like, okay, so a sizable base of 2 million youths, and we know that Gen Z lives on the internet, right? Where are they hanging out? They're on TikTok, they're on Instagram. Some of them are business owners, some of them are very entrepreneuristic, and there's some of them, even like things like cryptocurrency and investing at an early on, which is a very different generation from the millennials, the boomers, and the Gen X, right? And we sort of knew if we were going to onboard and sort of be the winning, have a winning formula, we needed to speak in a language that they understand. So first, your tone of voice in terms of talking to a Gen Z has to be very relatable. That was the first thing top of mind that we decided we were going to do. We were not going to look like dinosaurs in a room convincing Gen Zs to come on board and use a product that was outdated. It was very lifestyle driven, and it was very very fit in terms of the market. So that was one. Number two, learning when we put the go-to marketing strategy together, we knew that we had to look through their data, and we had to see like, okay, what was their behavior and their consumer spend like, right? Where were they hanging out, and what were they spending on, and what were they thrifting on, right? And what are missed opportunities, and what are things that we can offer them. And so we very quickly found out that, you know, um, in data points and research, Gen Zs are unlikely to like millennials. Millennials has this rush and tendency to, I need to buy a house, I need to buy a car. Whereas the Gen Zs are like, yeah, maybe I could rent for a bit, if it, so that I don't need the stress of, purchasing a home first. I would love to travel a little bit more, maybe live, be a digital nomad for 6 months, experience and explore the world, learn more about investing, and then I will come back to making such a huge commitment at a later point. So then we realized that okay, lifestyle investments and having more financial strategies were things that were interesting to them, and they were more likely to use QR codes to scan. The ease of access of payments was very important to them. They don't like to waste time. Anything beyond a minute is slow, right? So we knew, okay, that was it. And the third thing is they are very, very incorporated into lifestyle brands. So fashion, travel, and leisure and shopping, F&B were very, very sentimental and very relatable touch points to the Gen Z market. And knowing all of this, we use all these data points to assemble a whole list of merchants, which was how we got AirAsia, we got Zalora, we got Shopee, and a lot of partners to come in to build just a bundled kind of offer, which was the most competitive one in the market compared to the other two e-wallet players. And what that told us is We had a theory, we validated it with data, and we did our homework, and we did our MPS. We were asking questions, we were communicating with our audience and asking, like, what do you prefer? What brands would you like to see? Is this lucrative offer for you? And with all of these conversational two-way conversations, we were able to win so many people over. And that translated into an acquisition play in terms of how many people signed up to BigPay and actually got the wallet during that campaign timeline. And we were also notably, the choice's favorite, because we got organic brand love from whether it is from social media, whether it is from advocacy on forums. You could just see it flying around. And I think organic PR as well was a very, very good track metrics that we saw. And we didn't pay for those things, and we were getting a lot of brand love, we were getting a lot of customers advocacies naturally, a very organic scale. And I think for me, just looking at this and the numbers that translated after that, and in terms of how it continued into customers continuously adopting the product, was for me a success. And this was a very, very good example at a very, very high impact campaign for us.
Wow. You mentioned a lot of parts that you actually leverage data points
Yeah.
about where Gen Z hang out. What kind of brand they probably resonate with, and that helps to put together a vendor list that you will do strategic partnership with. But I heard a lot of stories around people and the way you described just now is like, this is the insight that you can use, which is not a common thing for a lot of people who need to deal with data and research. So I'm curious, when you are trying to look for this kind of data points, right, what are the biggest challenge you face? And how do you overcome that?
First, you have to know what you're looking for, right? A lot of people look at data and they comb through a bunch of data, but they don't know exactly the parameters of what they're looking for. So you could be looking for a needle in haystack, or you could be looking for the right data, wrong project, not knowing how to marry it, right? And I think in data as well, data alone, it tells you a story if you're willing to connect it. So the biggest challenge is in itself is that data presents a lot of opportunities, but you need to put specific parameters around it, so that you can connect the dots and align it to your opportunities and the goals that you really want to do. Be clear of your campaign objectives. If this is an acquisition play, or this is a retention play, or this is a conversion play, first align that, and then look at the data in terms of your customers, and then build the parameters around and centric to your campaign, so that you don't get frustrated when you don't see things happen, and that you are eliminating as much possible errors that are going to factor and affect your campaign and your efficacies. And then eventually, I think, set very precise targeting and parameters with data. So, right, if you're looking to do for example, like a conversion play, right? I would say, okay, I'm planning to convert this customer to buy another product, to be a frequent user of another product. But if I am targeting a customer only who has predominantly been inactive, right? And I'm targeting a cross sell in terms of a very highly active, engaging campaign. It's a little bit of a mismatch. And I'll give you an example of that, right? For example, me as a payments platform, I noticed that my customer has, stored their card on file, and they have enabled, ID metrics, right? So what it tells me is that this customer likes convenience, and this customer does not want to go through the hassle of inputting, their card numbers or their information. They preferred a seamless experience and less friction as possible. Now, onto the next point, me as a business, knowing this and knowing that this customer usually traditionally spends more on high ticket items. Now, as a business, I would say, okay, most of the transactions have gone through and it doesn't look like this person has a problem with purchasing. As a business, I would then offer this customer a premium product, right? Like, hey, maybe you're an all-time traveler, and you spend this kind of 400 to 500 ringgit average. Now, what if you were to also buy insurance on your travel? What if you were also to buy a premium travel package, right? That has a little bit more added advantage to your customers. So pairing the right data and sort of pairing and knowing what to look for and putting the right parameters is very important.
Got it. And just now, one of the data that you mentioned is NPS. So you diligently, for that project, you keep actually keeping track of basically the NPS score. Now, I've heard people say, some articles say, NPS is outdated. Okay. I mean, I'm definitely stirring some debates over here. What's your point of view?
NPS is not outdated, right? Because you have to understand, it's just like marketing, right? Marketing transcends over time. We evolve. And that is always going to be the heart and secret sauce of the magic of being in this role. Now, NPS has work. And the reason why it don't work is probably you're not asking the right questions or the format is outdated, right? There are different ways that you can engage your customers and asking NPS. And I think this is still a practice that we do at BigPay. And it's proven very effective. And it's given us extra brownie points, I guess, from customers because they felt hurt and they felt that as a business, we are engaging them in a two-way conversation. And we're
Mm.
asking them, like, what are your preferences? What do you think about this? Is there something that we could improve, or is there something that you particularly enjoy? And what is something that you would like to see? Continually as you continuously use our product in this line of service. So for me, it is always making sure you are asking questions in the right tone of voice, in the right format, and you making sure that you do it in a way that is most up to date, right? So once you have those things in place, I think it remains a very valuable tool to any business.
Is there any examples that you potentially can share around what are the potential actions that you have actually taken based on the MPS findings?
Okay. No, this is a great question. And yeah, absolutely. So I think marketing to different markets is very different. So how you would market in Malaysia versus how you would market to Singapore is very different. And when we were expanding BigPay into the Singapore market, we had to relearn behaviors and we cannot assume that the data points that we had in the Malaysian market is going to apply across the board, right? Yes, everybody needs financial services. Yes, everybody wants to be a millionaire and everybody wants to have the best product, right? But the market behavior and maturity and receptiveness is completely different ballgame. So when we were in Singapore, we had to talk to as many people as possible in terms of what were their brand perception towards BigPay. What did they like most upon the onboarding experiences? What we thought we could do better as a brand, and who we thought who they would like to see us collaborate with to give them a value added offer to be competitive and to have the right USPs in the market. And upon discovery, we realized that certain brands, for example, like Shopback and Shopee, were very top of mind brands. And because they had seen that synergy with us in Malaysia, we have very strong affiliation with these partners in Malaysia. So we were like, oh, okay, now we have the right answers and, looking at these data points and market and consumer demand and market. And we were like, okay, it makes sense to strike a synergy collaboration in these markets in Singapore and to talk to these counterparts. We also knew as a product, the demand for digital assets was so much more higher. Okay. So everyone's into the Web3 craze, cryptocurrency. I will not get into the whole situation and what's happening in that market.
That will be for another episode.
That will be for another day. I would love to go about it, but this would have been a 5-hour conversation. So I think cryptocurrency, the transition into Web3, and so many people are now moving into ownership of digital assets. And with the Singapore market, there was just so much more of a higher appetite, and they were already sort of educated investors. And knowing that put cryptocurrency a more priority product in our roadmap as a
Mm,
business, we made that
mm.
decision because there was a market demand for it. And every marketer knows this, right? You got to act on a timely manner. The moment you don't strike the iron when it's hot, you've lost the plot. And it's a missed opportunity, right? It's opportunity cost for you as a business. So we moved very quickly based on the data that we had from MPS. And that's exactly why we delivered our crypto exchange, and we delivered a crypto. We got our licensing, and we basically rolled out in the market in our offerings Q3 last year.
I want to shift a little bit into how would how do you define success in either marketing or as an organization? and whether or not this has evolved over time?
This is a very, very good question. Defining success. I think success is a very subjective thing, right?
Yeah.
Success looks very different to you, looks very different to me, looks very different to my parents. But I think, as an organization, I would tackle that one because we've spoken quite broadly and quite a large in terms of marketing relations, right? But I would like to touch on it from an organization standpoint, and I would tell you what's important later. Um, Having buy-ins on your marketing effort across the board, and your campaigns on a 360 level, and just having everyone have the same sense or maybe a certain percentage of advocacy and a sense of pride and ownership, in terms of the campaigns, is a
Mm.
metric of success to me, because essentially you have successfully evangelized the goal and the outcome and the process. And if it means you have successfully told a story even within your organization, that they are now willing to be part of your campaign and campaign the messaging for you. So everyone has skin in the game. Um, and I think successful marketing as an organization is also, seeing the pride and joy of, your employees, advocating the brand, having tied in with the mission of the product that you want to do, feeling a sense of belonging in terms of your DNA. And I think, if they naturally would even refer it to their friends and family, right? The whole evangelism that comes from a very natural state without you having to push, or for it, is the winning metric. I think it's what determines success. Get people in the organizations involved. Everyone is going to come together and you're going to have a collective win. And I promise you, from the experiences I've had 4 years in BigPay, it's so magical, and it's one of the best feelings ever, because everybody wins and everybody is now geared for the success of this project.
I have a lot of things that I wanted to, ask here. Because actually, this is exactly one of the questions that I want to ask just now. Because you bring up David and Goliath two times, right? And when you are bringing that examples, right? The thing that came to my mind is, now you need a team to to fight with Goliath, but you need an aligned team, especially when if you're a David team. How do you align them? So you just not answer that question, so without me asking, which is, you need to give a slice of the pie. Can you give us a specific examples of, like, how exactly do you do that?
Hmm.
And in a way that is genuine, right? I think people will sense that if it's not really come from originally. So I'm curious, how do you go about this?
I think the first thing that people need to know, and the first thing from personal experience, is no matter what business you're in, you need to know that you're in the business of people,
Mm.
right? That's the first thing. And where I'm going with that is, you need to come in and know that you spend 9 to 5, or the most time you're going to spend in the office, right, are with your colleagues, and they become like a second set of friends or family that you're going to have. Now, if you build relationships with these people around you, you understand what makes them tick, and you understand their personal goals and philosophy. And you can never run a project or work in a company and be completely detached. I just don't believe in it. And I think that most people, when you have that proximity and you have a team that is bonded together, and you just generally have, I'm not saying that you need to tell your deepest secrets and go for, kumbaya sessions and whatnot. I'm saying, know what's happening with your neighbor, right? Know that, okay, maybe my neighbor, Kimi, is having a bad day. She's going through some stuff, and elevate something. Or knowing that my other colleague, has certain aspirations within the organization, and if you're within your means to help them achieve that, that's not really in your KPI in terms of your work metrics, but that's on a human metrics. And I think that's one of the big things that people miss out. We are often so focused on chasing KPIs and metrics that are given, by our bosses or by, our organizations. We forget to check in with the human metrics with the people around us. So if we buy that in and we actually have relationships with people, your workload is going to become so much more collaborative. It's going to become easier for you. And it's going to be easier for you to lobby something with so much more support, because people know who you are, and the DNA of who you know is your essence, and who you are, and you can't fake it. You're spending so much time interacting with people, right? It's people are going to know you for that. And so I would say that have relationships with people, know that you're in the people business, and build these relationships, and then together collectively go and attack it, you know. And and that's exactly why I would go back to the example of ePemula, right? We were actually the smallest and leanest teams compared to all of the competitors and the wallets in the market. But we came out with recognition from Ministry of Finance and the Prime Minister's office, saying that this is such a well thought of experience from end to end, from digital, from your booth to your engagement to your buzz, and to your tech experiences, your onboarding experiences. It has been fantastic. And I'll tell you something, I almost cried listening to that in person, because God knows, leading a project at that high level, it meant that I couldn't mess up, right? I would not let myself. And there were just so many things on my shoulder that we were carrying on. It's product launch. It was presenting to the prime minister. God knows I was preparing for that. And that's a different story, right? But we didn't have the biggest team, but we had the A team. And the reason why the A team could come together was because the A team knew skill sets and strengths. So maybe I was really good at coordination and bringing the band together. Maybe my colleague X is really good at checking and making sure everything is done on time. You're very good in terms of time management. And then maybe colleague C is very good in communication and making sure that a mandate is socialized across and nobody gets left behind. So you need to tap into strengths from all your team to make sure you cover it. Delegate it, trust your teammates, and have proximity with them. That's what's going to let you win, regardless of how tall the order is, no matter what Goliaths you're going to go through in projects. That is what is going to help you in the long run.
I love that. I think you probably just make the title of our show, Human Metrics Matters, in order to win. Well, with that, we have reached our very exciting lightning round. We call it lightning round because we actually have four quick questions for you.
Okay.
Are you ready?
God, I hope I am. Okay, let's do it.
Let's do it.
I
Okay.
think the start is always like very exciting, but you're like, what was she gonna ask?
Yay. Yes. Okay. The power is on my hand. Question number one. What are the most important skills that a marketer should have, in your opinion?
Okay. Skills as a marketer. Number one, never be afraid to experiment. Um, you know, it's a really highly creative job. So just experiment, experiment. Don't be afraid of making mistakes, right? The worst thing that you can do is the mistake. And once you've made the mistake, it's done. And you'll just figure out another way that didn't work, right? But don't make mistakes that cost your business millions of dollars. I just have to put that caveat there. Keep yourself updated with market trends, because you are in the front line of your business success. To be honest, you are the first line of defense of your company, and you are the informed person that's going to make or break your business in terms of how much they're going to go, and market entries and barriers that you're going to cross. Know how to keep your language simple, know how to tell stories, and talk to your peers, right? Because you may have a great idea, but your peers always offer a different standpoint. So we're all looking at the same things, but the way we infer it, the way we approach it is very different. So always talk to your peers. That's where best ideas, or you can solidify your decisions or your ideas. And I think last but not least is enjoy the process. Always enjoy the process.
Well, although you say you're not sure if you're ready, but you ace this because you kind of already answered my second question, which was supposed to be what advice would you give to someone who interested to pursue a career in marketing? But I think a lot of the things that you said just now already apply.
Oh, actually, you know what? I could take that, and because I think yeah, I'll take that. It's okay. We'll consider it a bonus, right? Um, if someone wants to pursue a career in marketing, I'll just say go for it. What's the worst that can happen, right? Like if you try it and you fail, you've just figured this is not for you and you can pivot and move on, right? But if you try and you succeed, you would have hit goal and you would have found somewhere you belong. And personally, that's why Nike famous, like the saying is so famous,
Just
just
do
do
it.
it. And personally, I'll add the final touch, which is you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So just do it.
Love that. My third question. What are the key data or key metrics that you monitored in either when you're building your marketing or brand?
Hmm. I would look at brand sentiment. I think there are four prongs of this, right? So first is brand sentiment, knowing what your customers are saying about you, whether positive or negative, so that you can pulse check in terms of whether you're faring good as a brand in the market. Um, and then seeing if you have budget for it, social media tools great for that. Brand share, are you your customers top of mind choice, and whether they are organically evangelizing your brand for you, that's how you know. And then the other two would be acquisition and retention. So for the acquisition bit, I would say looking at just how much of customers are growing in your market in terms of the market that you're marketing to. And the retention is just knowing that how much of product adoption is happening, and customers staying with you and adopting different lines of products, because that would then tell you that your product is actually giving a added value to their lives, is making their lives better. And it's, yeah, essentially you would know that it's working, right, that the formula and the metrics is working.
Awesome. For the four key metrics that you look into. My last question. What is the one marketing book or resources that you would recommend?
Books. Oh, before I answer which title, this is something that I would tell a lot of people, but only because this has been something that's been asked to me quite recently a lot, right? So I would say don't read a book just because for the sake of reading it. Go for a title that inspires you or provokes you, right? And doesn't matter what that is. Just a title that really, really grabs your attention. If it comes to marketing, honestly, there are two books. I'm a bit of a wild card here. So there's this book called The 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. This book was published all the way, I think, in the early 90s, right? I was probably so young, so young. And I would say that this book is perfect for a blend of marketing veterans to remind us of the commandments of marketing. It's a good refresher, and it's something to keep us in line and check to make sure that we upheld ourselves to that standard. And for those who are looking for a career in marketing, who are new and just need something that is not overcomplicated, not drowned in jargons, and not overwhelmed, this is a perfect starting point. For those who are a little bit more seasoned, may I offer the title of Made in the Future? This was a gifted book to me, I think very recently, but I think this is marketing in the modern day, and we're talking about changes in media, content, and everything. Um, Customers buy, sell perceptions and processes and logic, and this is great for all marketers who want to thrive in a very competitive landscape when you are fighting for attention with all other businesses. And this is kind of the book that tells us the transition between the marketing styles of Kodak and Apple, who's,
Mm,
yeah. So read that book. I think it's so great because it gave me so much perspective. Yeah.
the second one is something I haven't checked out before. Definitely gonna look over that one. You love to give bonus. Thank you, Nina. One final questions. Where can folks find you if they want to reach out and learn more about what you're up to?
This is not a trick question, right?
No, not a trick question.
Well, I think the best place to connect, you can find me on LinkedIn, Jia Nina, and I think you should be able to find me because I haven't come across anyone with my name. I mean, personally. So yeah, I like connecting with people. If you ever want to exchange ideas, bounce off certain concepts, or just connect and talk about industries, whether it's payments, crypto, anything. Yeah, I think LinkedIn's the best place to do it.
Amazing. Thank you once again for being here. Thank you so much, Nina. This has
Thank you
been
for
a
being
very
here.
awesome learning.
I know this has been a great conversation, and thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much for listening. If you find this valuable, you can subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google Podcasts. Also, please consider giving us a rating or leaving us a review because this really can help other listeners to find the podcast. You can find all the episodes or learn more about this podcast at Vase.ai. See you in the next episode.